It is the Brad and Britt podcast, and look who we have with us today. Back for a second appearance is Dave Graveline, Into Tomorrow, number one tech expert that we know of on the planet since the demise of Steve Jobs himself. That's the best thing.
Oh, jeez.
How's that for an intro?
Interesting intro and comparison. Thanks, I think.
But you are out in Northern California there. Is this at the Intel Development Conference I'm reading here?
It is. In fact, the Intel Developer Forum, or known as IDF, we've broadcast from here several times over the years, and it's really a gathering of folks that are networking and creating and thinking in terms of what the future will hold. Their theme this year is, what would you make? And it's like, what would you make with all of this tech? And there's a real big influence on the IoT. If you haven't heard that term yet, you will more and more. It's the Internet of Things, and how so many things are interconnected and connected to be online. Some people might argue that it's not very necessary that everything be connected. Others will say, well, there are advantages to connecting your refrigerator to the Internet, among other things. So it's just a whole bunch of folks, many thousands, frankly, that are here, and I'm spreading my cold to most of them. And it's like, so take that, you techies. It's very much the case when I come back from most international trips, and I know we'll get to Berlin in a minute, but that sort of thing happens. The show must go on, however, and we're out here doing a bunch of interviews for Into Tomorrow, and we'll present them after our 2 weeks' worth of coverage from IFA in Berlin. There's so many initials here, I get confused. Yes, we're now at IDF, we were at IFA, and in between we were at Apple. More I things.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Apple. You were there when not Steve Jobs was on stage among the gadget throng, and they introduced the Apple Watch and the brand new generation of the iPhones. What was the vibe? What do you think of what's been introduced so far?
Well, the vibe there, of course, as we expected, because it's an auditorium full of Apple fanboys and girls, was just jubilation and excitement, and it was like, calm down, for crying out loud. And even fellow members of the press, it was like, you don't applaud stuff, you're here to be objective. And big whoop, they're finally late to the party as always, but coming out with a bigger screen. And in fact, the iPhone 6 will have a 4.7-inch screen. The current iPhone iterations are 4-inch. So even the next regular, if you can, in air quotes, iPhone, will have a slightly larger screen. But then the iPhone 6 Plus, another goofy name, will have a 5.5-inch screen. And people are already saying it's uncomfortable in their hands. They're just not used to it because they're used to the smaller iPhone. They don't know that they'll go there. But again, late to the party. Samsung and others have had larger screens for those where size does matter, and it does in electronics. Wanted a larger screen. I use the Galaxy Note 3. That last week in Berlin, we were seeing the introduction of the Galaxy Note 4. So now my phone is even obsolete, but that's life in electronics.
Right. But Dave, Apple is known for, and I believe these are Tim Cook's own words, for creating needs for stuff that you didn't know existed, but then when they introduce it, you figure out that you can't live without it. Is this another iteration of that? The iWatch, which is interconnected, and you have to have an Apple phone, you have to have an iPhone for that to be used. I understand that's one of the criticisms, because if it was mass available to everybody, maybe, but again, if we're so smart, why are we talking about them?
Yeah, no, exactly. And see, that's the thing that I'm always talking about in our show, is that even with all the rumors, 50% of which we're convinced are planted by Apple to get not only us tech media talking about them, but the rest of the media. I mean, you guys talking about the rumors and if it'll do this and if it'll do that, and are you anxious to see what's going to come out? And they have a heck of a marketing arm that does an amazing job at getting the word out. And their products, no doubt, I give them credit, are sexy generally, are innovative sometimes. But it seems like, especially with smartphones, one company after another is just copying one company after another.
Right.
And for them to finally come out with something like a large screen, their fan base has been asking for that, not a whole lot, but enough to warrant it for several generations of iPhones now, when others have come out with it. The Apple Watch, very carefully not officially called the iWatch, and mostly I think that's because several of us said the iWatch will be coming one day, is absolutely no better than the Galaxy Gear that I've been wearing since it came out, and other wearables. Wearables, a big buzzword here at IDF as well at this Intel forum. It's all about wearables these days. It doesn't do anything more than other smartwatches do now. And plus, as you mentioned, the restrictions. So I don't know that a lot of people are going to want to spend $350, except those drinking the Apple Kool-Aid, that will say, I've got to be in line, I've got to have the watch, I want the bragging rights, and good for them. You know, it's going to be a fun little piece of electronics that I don't know that it's worth $350. I'm convinced that it's not, but they're going to sell a lot of them. And folks are going to get the iPhone 6 Plus just because they want to be able to say they have it.
Talking with Dave Graveline into tomorrow here on the Brad and Britt podcast. The big news maybe out of everything besides the gadgets yesterday was this Apple Pay thing, which is taking square aim at PayPal. And already Wall Street early is kind of picking sides on this one. And eBay was down partially because they think that this PayPal, this attack on PayPal is going to stick from Apple. How do you think that's going to work out?
Well, I think it's obviously yet to be seen what's going to happen there, but there's still a lot of folks, rightly so, I think, that are very concerned about their privacy, very concerned about their bank information. Now, what Apple's doing, of course, is something unique in the sense that there'll be one-time use numbers assigned and that sort of thing to help prevent some theft or the reuse of a number. But all in all, it's still ultimately tied to your bank, tied to your Amex or your Visa or MasterCard. There's going to be some interesting things working out there. And, of course, Apple's just coming off a massive negative PR situation with releasing private information, whether it be nude pictures of celebrities or other information. The point is they are just as hackable as any other company, and it's been proven very recently. So I'd be a little cautious about that initially. Maybe assign a debit card that you keep very little money in so that if somebody tries to use it until you're very comfortable with it, maybe that's the way to go.
Mm-hmm. My take on the mobile payment thing is it's solving a problem that I really don't think exists in most people's lives, which is it's just so hard to buy things. It's so difficult to go, and therefore, the real problem continues to be, and probably will be for the next billion years, I don't actually have enough real money to buy things. Yeah. I can buy stuff.
But there was going to be an evolution beyond plastic. The money, paper money to plastic, and then there was going to be an evolution beyond
that goes back, and Dave, agree or disagree here, that goes back to what we've been talking about the last year or so with the Target breach, with now the Home Depot breach, that the American credit card companies that have basically been told by Apple, you play or you die, right. So they've all signed on with Apple. Yeah. They have refused to upgrade the most basic security measures of regular credit cards that they've had over in Europe for years. So it's almost as if Apple has come along and is going to force them in another way to divert at least a small percentage of the money that comes in through the merchant vigorish will go to Apple now.
Yeah, of course, and they have a very unique way of doing that, just like they have a unique way of making their most loyal customers continue to pay more new good money because they've done things like change the connector, so all of your accessories won't work anymore. When they went from the 30-pin to the Lightning connector, everybody was like, wow, cool, high-tech. Oh, wait, all the stuff I've invested in is useless now. That happened. But in terms of what you're talking about there with kind of strong-arming the credit card companies, we're all going to pay for it in the long run, of course, but you're absolutely correct about that. And whether folks need it or not is a whole other story. A great example of what you just talked about, though, is Amazon's Fire phone.
Right.
Because it has not sold anything close to what they thought. And all it is an easier way to buy stuff. one-click purchasing. Well, great. That's just what I need on my phone. If I think, oh, that's really cool. Oops, I just bought it. I'll take 2 clicks to confirm any day.
No, see, Dave, 2 clicks is so hard.
Oh, that's so.
I know. My finger hurts. It does, but at least my bank account might not hurt as much.
Tell us about Berlin, and I don't mean the group that gave us "Take My Breath Away."
They were not there, I don't think, at the time. But this was our 11th broadcast from IFA, which used to be known as the Internationale Funkausstellung. And since 1924, this is a show rich in incredible tech history. Albert Einstein, one of the first keynote speakers. I mean, that tells you just how cool this show has been over the years. The cassette tape was introduced at this show. MP3 players, the very first one introduced at IFA. We broadcast 2 weeks' worth starting this weekend on Into Tomorrow. But the real buzz, in addition to wearables, I mean, it's every company and their brother is now coming out with fitness things and bracelets and watches and all sorts of other wearables. Very cool things being introduced and shown. Our buddy 50 Cent, the rapper, we're close, so I can call him Fitty, was introducing with his company SMS new earbuds that when they're in your ears will also constantly monitor your heart rate.
Man.
And why not, right? At least you have some additional things
he needs
that are doing the job for you.
Fitty needs that because he gets shot a lot. They just got to make sure he's still alive.
Wait a minute.
Exactly.
I just thought of a synergy here. When you see the Cialis and the Viagra commercials, they warn you if you have a heart condition, make sure you don't take this.
Yeah.
So if you have the earbuds in while you're having sex, after you've taken your Viagra, you may be able to know whether it's safe to proceed or not. What do you think?
See, there's the connection.
That's true. You may have to just kind of move aside for a moment and regain your composure, we'll
Turn
say.
down the volume, so to speak. Yeah.
So what is Samsung reloading with? Did they have any neat presentations in
Oh, my gosh, yes, of course. Well, the new phones, the Edge, as well as I mentioned the Galaxy Note 4, but one of the coolest things that we saw a few of, including from Samsung and LG and others, were the new curved screens.
Yeah.
And a bendable screen. Now, they a couple of companies introduced a 110-inch curved screen, and you figure that's wonderful, but there's a sweet spot. If you're the one sitting in the middle of the sofa, you might have what they're calling that cinematic experience, but people on either side of you are not going to have the same experience. So this, I think, more of a novelty, unfortunately, kind of like 3D was in a lot of sets. And for $120,000, these sets are being introduced. I'm not on the waiting list for that.
And I'll bet the sound still stinks because it's a TV.
Yeah, it's probably true.
Yeah. Well, not if you're using the earbuds that are checking your heartbeat, then that's fine. Yeah.
Dave Graveline, do your plugs, and then we'll let you get back out there with the geeks.
Well, no plugs except intotomorrow.com. If we don't have an affiliate station nearby you, we're on over 200 AM and FMs around the U.S. and stations in Canada and Armed Forces Networks, a whole bit. But just visit the show, download our free app if you don't already have it. I know you guys do. You show it to me on the phone all the time.
Sure.
And you can hear the show. So as I mentioned, starting this weekend, we start the first of 2 weeks of coverage from Berlin and a whole lot of cool products. And we did video of all of the radio interviews, so folks can come and see all of these products that we're talking about on the radio. And then, of course, racing over to the Apple announcements and posted a whole bunch of stuff about that. And then now at IDF, the Intel Developer Forum, so that will air in 3 weeks. It's like we're so behind on reporting on some of the tech, it's just because we can't cover everything at once. But it's a lot of fun, and it beats working for a living.
It's a feast of content over the next few weeks at Into Tomorrow. And also make sure that people are following you on Twitter at Dave Graveline.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, and I'll follow back.
Yep, there's Dave Graveline, and then there's everybody else who's
right.
just pretending out there. Thank you, Dave.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime. Have a great day.